Good afternoon, and welcome to UCEA YouTube Live. This is Amy Reynolds, Graduate Research Assistant and doctoral student at the UCEA headquarters at the University of Virginia. I'm here today to interview Shelby Cosner as a part of her candidacy for the UCEA Executive Committee. Today, listeners will be hearing from Dr. Cosner, an Associate Professor of Educational Organization and Leadership at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Her research interests include organizational change, school reform and improvement, leadership for school improvement, and principal preparation, development, and evaluation. Welcome, Dr. Cosner.
Hi.
Let's begin with the first question. Please tell us about your background and your scholarship as it relates to leadership preparation and practice.
I graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2005, following over a decade as a principal and a system level leader. I've been at the University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC, since that time, first as an assistant professor, as you noted, and now as an associate professor. For most of my time at UIC, I've been one of the co-leaders of our doctoral program in urban ed leadership. This is one of several programs that have received UCEA's Exemplary Educational Leadership Preparation Program Award. I motivated our program to seek admission to UCEA and have played a lead role with our program's ongoing improvement work over the last decade. Related to my scholarship, briefly, as you mentioned, I'll expand on it. My work really centers in two areas. One area of my scholarship centers on the work of leaders to improve schools. In this area of work, I'm particularly interested in the work of principals, the work of teacher leaders, leadership teams, and in thinking about these three entities of leaders, how they work to support school-wide improvement of student learning. As I think about these leaders, I'm particularly interested in the leaders of urban schools and schools that have historically struggled to improve. My work in this area has investigated an assortment of issues. First, I'm looking at how principals cultivate collegial trust as a resource that supports school-wide improvement. I've also examined how administrative and teacher leaders support the use of collaborative data practices as a school-wide approach to improvement. My more recent work has looked at leadership related to the improvement of struggling schools, and particularly those schools that are facing accountability pressures. Now, a second broad area of my scholarship centers on leadership preparation and development. The bulk of this work examines how we prepare and how we develop principals, but with some attention and extension to teacher leaders. My most recent publication, co-authored with Susan Korach, examines the new knowledge that's been generated in the last decade regarding the ongoing development of school leaders. Although I've written several articles that are more descriptive accountings of our preparation program or particular preparation program features here at UIC, my past and current research examines leader learning needs and leader learning designs that address those needs. I began this work really by examining what principals and teacher leaders needed to learn to cultivate collaborative data practices, and then in turn, what that meant for leader learning designs. I'm currently leading a very large-scale study funded by the McCormick Foundation that's examining the learning needs of school-based mathematics leadership teams led by their school principals. These teams are tasked with leading school-wide implementation of Common Core math. I'm also currently examining principal preparation and development pedagogy and coaching, and this work is supported by the U.S. Department of Education and other funders. My work in these areas appears in such peer-reviewed journals as Edinburgh Quarterly, the Journal of Educational Administration, the Journal of School Leadership, Leadership and Policy in Schools, Urban Education, Educational Management, Administration and Leadership, the Journal of Research on Leadership Education, and Planning and Changing. So that provides an overview, a bit about my background before coming to UIC, and a little bit about my research and scholarship over the last decade plus.
Thank you. Transitioning into talking about your work with UCEA, you've served for several years as a plenary session representative. Tell us about your engagement in UCEA's governance.
So I've had the great fortune of being UIC's representative to the UCEA plenum since we were admitted in 2012. Since that time, I've attended all the plenum meetings. I've engaged in all of the governance-related activities that are associated with this broader group. Typically that entails things like reviewing and voting on programs under consideration for UCA, but also in 2014 we participated on a day at the Hill. Beyond the scope of this larger plenum group, I formally worked with UCA officials over the last several years to review and recommend procedures, rules, requirements, and tools associated with the Exemplary Educational Leadership Preparation Program Award. And since 2015, I've also served on UCA's Publications Committee, where decisions are made regarding UCA publications.
Thank you. I think this probably expands on the previous question, but in what other ways have you been engaged in UCEA?
So let me first begin by taking a look back at my time as a graduate student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I started my studies at UW-Madison in 2001, and very quickly at UW-Madison I came to understand the importance of UCA as a graduate student. During that time, I regularly attended and presented at UCA. And in addition to attending those meetings, I really began early on to get into the process of reviewing proposals and serving as session chairs and discussants. But since that time in grad school, as I said before, when I came to UIC, UCA was not something that was really on the radar of our university, and it was really important for me to get our program connected with UCA. So shortly after arriving to UIC, I began working with faculty members in our program to contemplate and prepare for an application to UCA. Now, over the last 4 to 5 years, there have been numbers of instances where I've had deeper engagement in UCA, and typically at the request of UCA. So for example, at the request of UCA, I served on a national advisory group co-led by UCA titled the National Project on the Evaluation of School Leadership Preparation. Following this project, I was then identified as one of UCA's expert consultants for principal preparation program evaluation. Also, at the request and on behalf of UCA, I've provided several national webinars on various issues related to leadership preparation. And for multiple years, I've served as a reviewer and/or a committee chair for UCA's Exemplary Educational Leadership Preparation Program Award. So beyond these types of activities, I'm also on editorial boards that are associated with UCEA. For example, I'm on the editorial board for Educational Administration Quarterly, and I'm also on the editorial board for the Journal of Research on Leadership Education, where I was recently notified by the JRLE team that I've been identified as this year's Reviewer of the Year. Beyond these two editorial boards, I have also been a contributing author to UCA Review. Beginning this year, I'll also participate on UCA's Improvement Network, and as a part of this network, I will be overseeing and taking the leadership for a site visit that the network will take to UIC sometime in 2017. So this gives just a brief overview of some of the ways that I've been engaged in UCA, dating back as early as my days as a grad student at UW-Madison and spanning forward to the president.
Okay, thank you. Our fourth question. Please discuss with us your scholarship, research projects, teaching, and/or service that can inform the work of UCEA, particularly the work of the Executive Committee.
So thinking about my scholarship, my research work, and I'm really thinking about them clustered together. For me, I really see a tight fit between the kinds of work that I do and the kinds of work that's central to UCA. If you look at the UCA website, you see 3 goals that are central to UCA: promoting and disseminating research on the essential problems of schooling and leadership practice, and a second goal related to improving the preparation and professional development of educational leaders and professors, and then also positively influencing local, state, and national education policy. And I feel like my work really relates strongly and maps tightly against all 3 of those areas. So if I were to pick out the things that I think are sort of most relevant, over the last decade, I've really been engaged in a variety of projects that have allowed me to be a part of national program improvement work. This really is a part of a variety of national projects that have developed professional communities of programs that have had deep interest in continuous and sustained program improvement. As I said, this work began nearly a decade ago, and it started initially through a network that was funded by the Broad Foundation, and then later a network that was funded by the Wallace Foundation, and even more recently one started by the Department of Education. Beginning this year, I'll also participate in UCEA's Improvement Network, as I discussed above. And as I participate in that network, and as I said briefly, I am going to be taking the lead to plan and then support and enact a site visit to the University of Illinois at Chicago for programs across the country participating in UCEA's network that are really interested in sustained program improvement and redesign work. I also expect to be deeply involved in another nationally funded project this year and over the next 3 to 4 years that will create a small national network to support the redesign of a cluster of principal preparation programs. As an expert consultant on principal preparation program evaluation for UCEA, I also expect to engage in a number of program evaluations across the US over the next few years, and I'm beginning to frame one of those projects currently. So I think if you take that work collectively, all of these experiences have really helped me to think very deeply about continuous program improvement. And that really builds on the work that I've done with my colleagues at UIC over the last decade for the improvement of our own program. So I think from this perspective, I've developed a lot of insights about what it means to improve a program, how to use cycles of inquiry to improve, what robust programs look like. My current research is really deeply examining preparation program pedagogy and preparation program coaching. And so I think I'm also beginning to really drill down, not just in terms of thinking about preparation programs largely and what are features of those programs, but I'm really conducting research to help me understand within those features of exemplary programs, what are the stronger practices. So I do believe that this work really would help me to be a knowledge resource for the executive committee of UCEA in the coming years. Now, beyond that, I'm really committed to positively influencing policy, particularly principal preparation and development policy at the state and national levels. For example, at the request of UCEA, this up-and-coming UCEA convention in Detroit, I'll be collaborating with one of my UCEA colleagues to lead a UCEA session that addresses the promotion of new state policies associated with principal preparation. Illinois is one of the first states to legislatively require the complete redesign of a principal preparation program. Our continuous improvement work at UCEA really informed our state's work, and some of the individuals in our program really did play a key role in shaping this state policy. These experiences are ones that I know that I can draw upon in my EC work. But I think equally important, my years of experience as a school and system leader and my long-standing co-leadership of UIC's program have honed my leadership skills and my project management skills. In addition, I think I have very strong large and small group facilitation skills, and I'm a strong collaborator and communicator. I believe all of these skills will be useful in the role of an EC member for UCEA.
Thank you. And our last question for you today. Please share the reasons why you have chosen to run for the executive committee and your vision for the future of UCEA.
So I was asked by the search committee to run for EC. It wasn't something that I had thought about prior to the invitation. I was excited to receive the invitation. And my reason to accept the invitation really originates from my duty of care that I have for the field. I feel that I have a real duty of care and a real duty of service to my profession and to UCEA more specifically. And so for these reasons, I believe that it was critical that I accept the request to run for office. I'm really proud that our program is a UCEA member. I'm proud to be a plenum member and an ambassador for UCEA in all of my interactions across the nation. And so for these reasons, I'm excited for the opportunity to be considered as an EC member. Regarding my vision for UCA, I'm strongly committed to the 3 goals that have been already established for UCA. But if I think about taking an even broader or a more forward-thinking position on these goals, I'm particularly interested in strengthening how we disseminate research in ways that it has a greater impact to the field of K-12. I think that we often are strong at disseminating our findings to other scholars and to people in policy worlds, and I'm less convinced that we know how to best really rapidly make an impact through dissemination to K-12 contexts. And so I'm particularly interested in helping UCA think about how we can enhance dissemination and knowledge sharing to K-12 schools. I'm also interested in having an impact on state and national policies, and in particular in shaping policies across the nation that can bring about stronger preparation and development for principals. And then, as you could see from many of the things that I discussed previously as I talked about my experiences, I'm strongly dedicated to improving principal preparation programs. And so I'm very interested in a UCA organization that continues to push for program reform, but also takes very, very dramatic actions to provide the kinds of supports and to build the kinds of communities necessary for that press to be realized in all of the UCA and non-UCA preparation programs across the United States.
Thank you very much for your time and thoughtful responses, Dr. Cosner.
Thanks.
This interview will be archived on the UCA YouTube channel. Listeners can access or share the interview at any time. Please stay tuned in for our next UCA Executive Committee interview with Dr. Mariela Rodriguez. Thank you and goodbye.